In the first 8 months of 2023, a lot of life has happened. Many of my friends had turned 30, got married, or started a family of their own. After returning home from South America, I decided to go at it alone and build my own career. A lot of life has happened in that time. My granddad passed away, I started a podcast, me and Connie got engaged, and throughout the summer, I've had loads of birthday parties, weddings, and it's all been about gymnastics coaching. I don't think I've ever been as content as I am right now, and this is my story. When I was a kid and I was growing up, I always wanted to do everything by myself. I never wanted any help. I remember when my mum would help me with my shoelaces, I'd tell her to get off me. My mum used to do this thing when I was a kid where she'd like wipe the brow of my head with like a wipe or something, and she'd put it on her hand and wipe it like, get off me, leave me alone. I just never wanted to do anything. I didn't ever want anyone's help. You know, if I saw someone do something, I'd give it a go, and even if I was struggling, people would try to help me. I'd say, leave me, I want to do it by myself. I think I've always been like that, so it makes a lot of sense that in January, when I decided that I was going to try and build my own gymnastics company, start a podcast, not work for anybody else, that I kind of came to that eventuality after working in 2 different jobs. I think that process started from when I was a kid, like I said. I just always wanted to do things differently. I never did anything the same as everyone. If everyone went left, I wanted to go right. If everyone's favourite flavoured Starburst was strawberry, mine was blackcurrant. I just always wanted to be slightly different. I can remember at Lilleshall when I was a teenager, maybe like 14, 15, we used to get really hungry at Lilleshall because we trained 3 times a day. And one morning they had like a coffee machine with coffee cups, and I was like, I could put my shreddies in the coffee cup and then fill it up with hot chocolate, sprinkle loads of sugar on it, and then like eat it as a snack. And then by the time I came to the next training camp, everybody was doing it, and then all of a sudden I didn't want to do it anymore because everyone was doing it. I'm always like that. If I choose to do something and everyone starts cottoning on, then I switch back and go the other way. I think I've done it throughout the whole of my life with Adidas and Nike. When everyone's wearing Nike, I'll wear Adidas. When everyone's wearing Adidas, I'll switch back to Nike. So I've always been slightly different and wanting to do things by myself. And, you know, I think that was same in my gymnastics career. That's probably why I was attracted to a sport like gymnastics, because it's very individual. You know, you have your own style. Certainly when you watch a lot of gymnasts, you can tell who it is without seeing their face by the style of their gymnastics. And I guess it wasn't probably until the age of about 24 or 25 that I really started to think about the coaching side of gymnastics. So when I was a kid, I never wanted to be a coach. I just thought, I'll retire from gymnastics and that's it. I'll do something completely different. And I've kind of stayed with that thought process even now. You know, I don't want to coach in the traditional sense. I don't really want to be in the gym like 6 or 7 hours a day with a group of 6 or 7 like boys or girls and coach them the whole way through. You know, I think I need different things in my life to keep me stimulated. But around the age of 24, 25, I started to ask Sergey why I was doing things, which is really interesting. I think that's probably where I started to be pulled into coaching a little bit. And I knew what to do. I knew the exercises and the skills in gymnastics, and I knew that they were the right thing to do, but I didn't understand why I was doing them. And I'd say to Sergey, I'm doing this skill or this preparation now, or, you know, I'm trying to do it with this technique. And I know it's the right thing to do, but I don't understand fundamentally why I'm doing it. And he would like break it down and start to tell me, and I started to look at gymnastics through a slightly different lens, not through an athlete's view, but through more of a coach's view. And I guess now when I look back, you know, I was analysing gymnastics from a very young age, and that's what coaches do. A lot of coaches do that. You know, I was watching footage all of the time, constantly. I was watching how other gymnasts did things. I was watching how other athletes and people that I competed against, how they mentally reacted to different stressful situations. I was almost kind of learning how different people's mentalities and personalities reacted to the sport of gymnastics. So I was probably training to be a coach from a very young age because I was analysing the sport. And more than anything, I was analysing people. So that started when I was very, very young. And I think when I look at the podcast that I then went on to start in the beginning of the year, that really started from a young age as well. You know, we're now at episode 30. I think we're recording 30 episodes today. And it's been like 6 or 7 months, and we're getting lots of people viewing every week. People subscribe to it, we get loads of good feedback. And you could, on the face of it, think, well, that's happened really fast, but it hasn't. You know, it's taken a long time. And when I think back to when I was a kid, you know, one of the best things my dad ever did for me was shove me in front of a camera when I was very young, because he understood very quickly, I've spoke about this before, that there was no money in gymnastics. And in order for him to fund my dreams of going to the Olympic Games and also financially support the family and make it work, he was going to have to build a profile or a brand, locally at least. So he was very good at putting me in front of a camera or getting the newspapers to come down, or if there was any achievements, I won any medals or competitions. Even when I played for Notts County, my dad would make me take my medal from the British Championships to Notts County, and then they'd gather in all the football age groups and they'd all congratulate me and give me a round of applause, and I hated it because I was super embarrassed. I didn't want to be at that point. It's funny, like I said, I always wanted to be different and do things differently, but I didn't want to, when I became a teenager, I didn't want to stand out. I didn't like that tall poppy syndrome. I wanted to just fit in with everybody else, I was just trying to fit in. I think most teenagers are like that. But he was really smart what he did, my dad, and it meant that by the time I got to 16, 17, 18, when I started going to big competitions, I went to the Youth Olympic Games when I was 17. Blue Peter followed me around, the BBC were following me around. I was quite accustomed already to being followed by journalists, camera crews, being interviewed, asked questions. I'd figured out pretty quickly what were the right things to say, what were the wrong things to say. And I started to really enjoy it, actually. By the time I was 17, 18, I got well versed in interacting with a camera and somebody on the other side of it. And, very quickly the questions became similar every single time. It was always, why did you choose gymnastics over football? And, why do you love the sport? What's your favourite apparatus? I used to get bored of those questions, so I used to play around with it. They'd ask me a question like, what's your favourite gymnastics apparatus? And I'll say, well, my favourite apparatus is high bar, but my least favourite is pommel horse. And the reason I don't like pommel horse is because, naturally I'm not that good at it. I have to work really hard at it. It's not as exciting for me. So I'd take the question in any direction I wanted to. I was like, wow, this is fun. This is really cool. So I think that's where my training started. And then the other side of that was probably storytelling, My dad was an incredible he still is an incredible storyteller, and I think that's probably where I get it from, and he definitely got it from his dad. Somebody said to my brother recently, I was really sad to hear about your granddad passing away. He said he's the best storyteller I've ever met, and he was amazing at telling stories, my granddad. I'm sure he elaborated a lot of the time and exaggerated things, but it didn't matter because it made the story better. And my dad was the same. When I was a kid, we used to walk down this road here, the road that we're on, and we used to walk down to the end of Lings Lane. And I can remember him once telling me that there was a troll. There was a troll, in the brook. And I believed him. And I went to school the next day and I told everyone, at the back of Keyworth, there's this troll that lives in the brook. And they were like, what? And then they believed me because I believed him so much, and I was such a good storyteller as well, that they would all believe me. I can remember once he dressed up as Santa Claus and climbed in the chimney and then filmed it with his leg sticking out the chimney. And then showed me, and then that was it. So I told everyone at school, Santa's real, because I've seen him in my chimney. And it was my dad dressed up. So he's always been like that. He's been a great storyteller, and that's kind of rubbed off on me, I think. I've always loved stories. I've got a great imagination. So when I close my eyes, especially when I was doing gymnastics, I can close my eyes even still and see myself doing any gymnastics skill. Wherever it is, I can put myself in a gym, whether it's the high bar at Nottingham or at Lilleshall or somewhere I've competed. I could close my eyes and see myself almost like I'm watching the TV. I can do it from bird's eye view as well, so I'm watching my hands, or like I'm watching the TV. That's the way I like to do it when I visualise. And I can see myself doing almost any gymnastic skill. I can pick a gymnastic skill I've never done before. I can close my eyes and I can see myself, my body doing it on that high bar. I think that's always been probably a really cool skill set that I've got, and it's helped me with my storytelling, and that, I guess, ultimately then led to the podcast. So it's funny, I started the coaching business in January. We started the podcast, but it started a long time before that. The coaching, I'd started working in schools probably when I was I think the first school I went into was my primary school, and that was when I was just after London, so I was about 19, 20 years old. And then I did schools on and off for friends as favours. And then when I came towards the end of my career, I had done my level 1 coaching qualification while I was still training. I didn't have any real plans to coach, but I thought this is probably a smart thing to do. It wasn't necessarily because I had the idea that I wanted to coach. So I did my level 1, and then as I got towards the end and I retired, I had a conversation with Josh, just literally out of the blue, about the week after I retired, I think, said, look, Josh, would there potentially be an opportunity for me to like work at the gym, do some coaching? I don't know what I want to do, but at the time I was working for my dad. I was finding that hard. You know, I loved the physical work. It was great for me, but it wasn't that anyone was telling me what to do all the time and I didn't like it. It was just that my creativity, I couldn't use it in that environment. You know, my job was to fill a skip or to wheelbarrow concrete or wheelbarrow stone, and that was great, but my mind was off doing other things the whole time, you know? So I decided, this probably isn't for me. It was very good for me mentally, physically, certainly humbled me, taught me a lot, that experience working for my dad in the building trade. But I realized sometimes it's very important that you try things so you learn what you don't want to do, or you learn the path you don't want to take, just as much as it is to try something to see if it is what you want to do. And for me, I kind of like went, okay, that path that I could go down there, be a builder, work for my dad, that's not for me. I'm going to close that one and move on to the next one. So Josh gave me that opportunity. I started working at the gym in the January. Absolutely loved that experience. I did that for 8 months, and the great thing about that was it was almost like an apprenticeship of coaching. So I worked with about 10 different groups a week. So I would work with kids that were just starting out and were in reception, so like 4, 5 years old, learning to do bunny hops, forward rolls, maybe cartwheels, but basically they were there to just enjoy gymnastics and start getting used to their body and using it and moving around. And then we'd go up the age groups. So there'd be a recreational class for reception, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, all the way to year 7, then year 7 plus. And I'd do the recreational groups 2 days a week. I'd work with the elite men sometimes, so the guys that are competing for Great Britain. On a Wednesday, I'd work with a girls group. They were like 7 or 8 years old. That was my favourite group to work with of the week. The coach that was there, Katie, she was brilliant. She got me hands-on straight away, so I had to really just get used to being thrown in the deep end and supporting kids, and they were the perfect age because they were 7 or 8 years old. I loved that group as well. They had like massive personalities. I tended to find that a lot of the boys were almost like a bit more like robotic and would follow orders, but the girls had big personalities at that young age. I think that changes as they get a bit older, but I really loved that. They were really cool, those girls, working with them, and it really, like, that certainly was probably the best education I got in terms of like supporting kids very quickly and being brave, because it's quite scary when you support a kid. You don't want to drop them, but you're obviously nervous and they've got to trust you. So that was brilliant. And I'd work with, sometimes with disability. I worked with all different types of groups, and it was like 10 different groups a week. So I was having to wear different hats all the time, and I was having to change my approach. How do I get these kids that are 5 years old just doing a forward roll motivated, and how do I motivate someone that's 24, 25? So I did that for 8 months and I loved it, but it didn't quite give me the buzz that competing did. And for me, I decided, like, if I'm going to make a big commitment and a big sacrifice, because kids are at school, right? So the only time you coach them is from after school into the late in the evening, every weekend, it's competitions on the weekends. I was like, if I'm going to make this big sacrifice, it's got to be the only thing I want to do, because I've sacrificed the past 20, 21 years of my life training in gymnastics. It's got to mean that much to me to make that sacrifice again. And ultimately, I decided I didn't want to do it. There was other ways that I could be involved in the sport, help, influence. And that was a really important thing for me to try to realize that that isn't for me, that path. I don't want to walk that path. I still want to be in gymnastics. And I guess I went away, I qualified as a level 2 coach before we went away traveling. And when I came back, one thing that it did teach me, I guess, those 8 months and working in schools, is that I started to notice problems. I think I'm quite good at noticing, like, problems and being a problem solver. You know, school was tough for me. For me to just follow rules and sit still, and that was hard. But I'm quite good at thinking outside of the box and coming up with weird things like the shreddies in a coffee cup. Like, I'm good at that. And when I noticed a couple of things in those 8 months where I was working, in particular cartwheels. So I noticed that there was about a handful of kids at the gym that were struggling to twist forwards. Like, it looked awkward and it looked odd. And the general consensus in the gym was that they were struggling. They just struggled twisting forwards. And I was kind of watching this like, there's something going on here. It doesn't look right. It doesn't look natural. And I started to break down which way they were twisting. So one of the kids was twisting. It was doing half a twist forwards one way and then twisting back the other way. And nobody had noticed that. And I was like, wow, that's what's going on. It's not that he struggles twisting. He's going half one way and back the other way. And one of the other kids was twisting a different way forwards to the way they were twisting backwards. So I'm like, what is this? Can I break this down? Can I take this back to the fundamentals? And I really enjoy that about coaching now. So now I coach like super low level, kids just starting out, forward rolls, cartwheels, handstands, flexibility, spatial awareness, all of these things that I coach, and I try to bring like a super high level of experience and technical knowledge to that fundamental gymnastics level, and I really enjoy it. It's really cool. I think it's quite rare and it's quite unique. A lot of people that have 20, 21 years of experience in gymnastics that compete at a super high level, they jump straight in quite high up. No one really takes the time to go in at the bottom, and that's really important for me. If I was ever going to be a coach, I would have done that. I would have carried on working with recreational side and working with the club side rather than just an elite group. I think it's really important for your development as a coach. So, yeah, that was really fundamental for me. And when it came to January and I decided, right, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to build my own gymnastics coaching business. It gave me some real fundamentals to build from. You know, I decided that I was going to build my own award scheme. So I have my own award scheme that kids work towards. It's all based around the Olympic rings. There's 5 different skills: strength, flexibility, balance, spatial awareness, and power. That is completely adaptable for when I go into schools as well. So it's really flexible. I can use it for loads of different things. But the first thing was figuring out where the hell am I going to coach? So what I did was, I've been a member at David Lloyd for since I came back in 2016. And I've always thought, I wonder if I could coach gymnastics here. I know that they did a few classes many years ago. So I tried to get a meeting with a manager, and it took a long time. So a lot of it was him being busy and not getting schedules. And I think it took me about 5 or 6 times knocking on the door, asking for a meeting to try and get this through. And it wasn't until, I don't think it was till February or March, I finally sat down with him, one of the other people that worked there at the gym, and straight away they gave me the green light, said, yes, you can give it a go. And the amazing thing about that was that, I did these taster sessions, and I've never built a business. So initially I had to sort out insurance. Didn't know how that worked, and that was quite complicated. I was ringing up all these different insurance companies trying to get the right answers. I had to make a risk assessment, never made a risk assessment. I had to decide how am I going to get paid? How does that work? How are they going to pay me? It was a lot. I didn't know any of this, and there was no one for me to go to. I really was starting, and I was on my own, but the cool thing was, because it was mine, I didn't mind. I didn't mind doing the hard work. I didn't mind going out trying to find the answers, and I imagine that might be slightly different if I was working for someone else. I was invested in it because ultimately at the end of the day, it was going to be my name on the door. So I went out and I found these answers and I just got going. And the truth is, I'd learned in the lockdown in COVID that I started a mentoring program, and I'm not trained in mentoring. I don't have any qualifications. Nobody stopped me. I worked with these kids in gymnastics clubs and a girls group from a gymnastics club, and I built this mentoring program off my 21 years of experience competing at a super high level. And it worked. And I was like, there are no rules. There's no set rules. I can remember working for my dad and thinking, all of these blokes here that are now incredibly experienced plumbers, bricklayers, electricians, a lot of them, they didn't have any training. They didn't go to college. They didn't study. They just started out as somebody's apprentice, and they learn on the job. And that's actually life. There are rules in certain situations in different parts of life and different jobs. There are. You've got to go and study if you want to be a doctor, right? You can't just turn up and start operating on people. But in a lot of places in there's no real set rules. You've just got to go, and you've got to be brave and push through it. And that's what I did with this gymnastics coaching. I just kept saying to myself, stumble forwards and just figure it out. And so I had these taster sessions in the Easter holidays. And over the 2 taster sessions, I had 25 kids turn up. I was like, this is brilliant. I'm going to have loads of kids in my first session. This is amazing. This has gone so much better than I thought. And we turned up for the first session, I had 3 kids. And I was like, wow. So I turn up, I've got 3 kids, and I get started, and I looked around, and I'm like, this is how it should be. It shouldn't be 25 kids from the first day, You've got to prove that this is a good product and the kids enjoy the sessions, the parents are happy with what I'm doing, what I'm teaching. You know, I've got to be able to, at that time when I just started, I was in a little room, a creche room in David Lloyd. The only equipment I had was the equipment they had there. I think it's really important for your development as a coach, and especially in gymnastics, to be able to work with almost no equipment. And I knew that was possible because I'd trained in lockdown with literally no equipment. So I got to work and I started with 3. And then by the start of the next month, I had 5. And by the start of the next month, 7. And I filled that group up by the end of August. And we worked towards the award scheme. The kids did the bronze award. It was really good. They were all super happy. They all smashed their awards, got a bronze medal, their certificate, and they're now going to work towards their silver award. And in September, I'm starting a second group. So my second group's going to start, and we're going to start on the bronze award again with that second group. First group's on the silver, you know, and my plan is to hopefully by Christmas then open a third group. And it's crazy, like, how you've just got to be brave and you've just got to start. That's like the hardest thing. But, you know, I started in April. I had the idea to start in January, so realistically that's been half a year, right? But it's not been half a year, it's been a whole lifetime. And what I've had to do is, like, over the course of my life and my gymnastics career and also the jobs that I've done, I've now learned how to repurpose previous work for a different situation. That's really important. So that mentoring program, I now take that into schools. I go into schools and I work with year 6s that are moving up to secondary school or are taking their SATs exams at the end of the year, and we work on building self-confidence, finding motivation, goal setting, and we work on it as a class together, and it's amazing. But that was something that I'd built 2 years before in the pandemic, but I repurposed for this one thing. You know, my school stuff, I'd worked at trying to help the gym in Nottingham get into schools. Now I do it on my own, so I just adapted that model to the model that I do now, and it's working really well. And my award scheme I use for my gymnastics coaching, I'm trying to adapt that to go into schools and teach it for their gymnastics curriculum. So there really aren't any answers. You've just got to really go for it. And I guess when we started the podcast at the start of the year, that was where, you know, I'd had a conversation with Sam before we'd left to go to South America. And what Sam had done was, he'd given me almost like a spreadsheet of, these are the things you need to do it on your own. Because what was tricky was that we thought it's going to be really hard for us to balance each other's schedules. But if I could be completely self-sufficient and I could go to the guest, because that's always tricky when you're trying to get a guest, they got to come to you, right? But if I could go to the guest and I could have everything I need, 2 mics, headphones, computer, everything I need to record the podcast, then I could send it to Sam to edit. And we tried it. I had a lad called Max. He does Match Day with Max with Forrest, and he's coming on the podcast in a few weeks. He came in, we recorded one, it was brilliant. Now, my interviewing, I was not happy with. I've been really rusty. I'd not done it since the podcast back in 2018. So we never released that episode. And I went away traveling and I thought about it. We came back, had a conversation with Sam. I said, look, Sam, I really want to do the podcast. It's the thing that I've done the last 4 or 5 years that I enjoy the most. I think I'm really good at it. And I think between me and you, our skill sets, we could make this work. Sam was straight away, he was on board. So we got started in January, and we had done a podcast in 2018. So again, this wasn't, you know, if you look at a podcast now, you're thinking, right, 6 months, 30 episodes. It's not. This has been years in the making. Like, we started working together back in 2018. Sam would come to the gym and he'd film some of my training footage. Initially, he came to just take some shots, some photographs. And then I said, Sam, have you ever thought about doing any videography? So we worked together. He basically archived training footage for 3 years in the gym. We did lots of YouTube videos. We tried all sorts of different things. So we tried the podcast. We tried a food club. We tried the sit down with Andy. We tried a barbershop Q&A. So we're trying all these different things. And again, we were building up that network of stuff that we tried to see, does that work? Does that work? Oh, when we get to this point now where we're ready to go all in on the podcast, what can we take from here and here and here? What have we learned to make it work? But if we'd have never tried that stuff there, this probably never would have happened. And, you know, I think I said in another episode, 90% of people never get to past 10 episodes of a podcast or something. And that was us. We did 5 episodes the first time round. I did one episode on my own before I went traveling and canned that in. And then we got to this point where we really now gave it a go and went all in. And it's been amazing. It wasn't easy. It was definitely nerve-wracking. I definitely didn't know what the hell I was doing when we started. Even though we had done a podcast before, we only put it on YouTube. So even in January, we were like, how do we put it online? And I went, I'll take that job and I'll figure that out. So I went off to try and find out literally Googling, how do you put a podcast on Spotify? Then watching YouTube videos of people doing it and then figuring it out. It's literally that basic. Just type it in, figure it out. And it comes back to that stumbling forwards. And if you don't know, go and find someone that does and have a conversation with them and figure it out. And yeah, we got started. I initially really wanted to just do guests straight away because that's what I love. I love conversation. It's like my favorite thing in the world is a good conversation with someone. And Sam basically said, look, I think you're good enough to do this on your own for 5 months and keep somebody engaged. And I was like, how do I do that? Like, how do I come up with these ideas? That's really hard. But we, again, stumbled forwards. And when I had a little panic around episode 6 or 7, Sam had a little chat with me and gave me the confidence. And the great thing about me and Sam working together is that we kind of hold each other accountable. We really respect each other's skill set. And we understand that they're going to bring the very best to it. And I do my part of the work because I know Sam's going to do his part, and it works really well. And that's the exact same thing I've been doing this year in the gym with Josh working in the gym. It's the same thing, like I'm tied in. I'm not going to just not turn up or turn up late or not timestamp a video or not plan for it because that reflects badly on Sam's skill set, and the same the other way around. And so it's worked really well. And yeah, I really enjoy it. It's been massively positive. I think Sam would say the same. It's a nice little break from the week as well. When we come in this room, we can it's like everything outside disappears. It's like me being back on the high bar again when I'm hanging there and my ears are tucked into my shoulder and I can't hear anything on the outside world. It's that feeling. It's everything else is gone and it's just us in this room. And I always want it to be that way. Whether there's 100 people listening or 100,000 people listening, it doesn't matter. This should never change. I should never change the conversations I'm having because more people are listening. So, yeah, I'm going to endeavour to make sure that is the case moving forward. We've got to 30 now. The target's got to be to get to 52, right? So we've done a full year and then get to 100. But now I can see how it works. But in the beginning, I couldn't see the way forward. You just have to start till the way forward starts to kind of like present itself. So that's been really, really cool. And it's taken time, Like I said, we started that first podcast like 5 years ago. Our relationship is probably 6 years strong now, so we trust each other. We've been through enough to know how each other's going to handle a certain situation, and yeah, it's great. I think the guests really enjoy it when they come down to the studio. It's an amazing setup. They all love it. With all the feedback I've got, I'm not surprised. Sam does an incredible job behind the camera, the editing, the sound. Everybody says to me, so I was at a barbecue with all my mates a couple of days ago, and one of my mates said, Sam, how you doing? I've not seen him for a long time, maybe like 6 months. He was like, I was meant to be going to France last week with my girlfriend, but she couldn't come. And it was a 9-hour car journey, but I had 9 hours of the sweet tones of the Sam Oldham podcast, and I was laughing my head off. And he was like, to be fair though, by the end of it, I was sick of your voice, and I was so excited when Courtney Tullock come on and there was another person's voice, and I was laughing. I was like, that's cool, because it's good that people enjoy it. It's good that, for me, that my friends enjoy it. And I've always said that if, people that I respect, and people, particularly in the gymnastics community, high-level athletes, when they tell me, it's good, keep going, I'm like, that must be good. Because if they think it's good, I trust their opinion, like other people probably do. But, I've not been the best probably at engaging with lots of people, but that's been something that I've consciously done. If someone privately messages me, I always get back to them. Especially if it's a long message and that. Sometimes I might take my time, it might take a week. I had a big message about the last podcast from a lady in Canada. I've had to sit on that. It was a real long one, but brilliant, really good podcast, really interesting. Email that I'm going to get back to her on. So that's good. I do engage with it, but I have to be careful, because if one day we do get loads of people, I know, I've learned with my mental health, that's too many opinions to manage. You just have to, this should never change, it should always be the same. I guess the next thing that, I've worked hard on this year, and I'm in a place where I'm feeling really good. I'm physically struggling the last couple of weeks, but up until this point, in January, I came back and I was like, do you know what? I've really missed exercise and sport being away traveling, it was really restrictive. I couldn't do any of that. I was stuck to like the hotel rooms we were in and whatever situation we were in. A lot of the time I was taking like the bed sheets off to put them on the hard floor, try and do a bit of training that just wasn't the same. I'd really missed playing football. And I came back, I was like, I'm going to need a target. I need a target again. Something that's going to motivate me. And I messaged Josh and I said, Josh, do you want to come to the gym with me one day before school? I decided that Connie gets up really early to go to school. I was like, I'll get up at the same time. So then we're awake together, at least when we wake up. That's a bit more time together. So I said, do you want to go like early in the morning? So we started going early in the morning. We did the one session. I was like, Josh, what do we want to do? Because the great thing about Josh is that, he went to university. He's got a degree. He knows his stuff when it comes to strength and conditioning, nutrition, that side of the things. Again, he's a coach, so he analyzes that, super interested in it. He brings that weights gym, lifting weights, all of that strength and conditioning side to his gymnastics coaching, which is really cool. I said, Josh, what do we do? So we had a session. I was like, I really enjoyed that. It was great. And he texted me that night and he said, let's do it 3 days a week. And I was like, amazing, let's do it. Because he was going to cancel his David Lloyd membership. He was like, I'm going to cancel it because I'm not going. He hadn't been in like 6 months. And then, so I kept David Lloyd some members there because him and Demi, they kept their membership. And so we started going 3 days a week and we had a plan, we had a strategy, right? But the most important thing was that I had a goal. And he said, what are you doing this for? I said, look, Josh, I've never been 70 kilos. I've lost a lot of weight while we've been traveling. I'd gone down to 63.5 kilos. Which for me was pretty light. I think I sat at about 66 before we went traveling. I said, I'd like to put some weight on, get to 70 kilos, see if I can do it, just as a target. And in the back of my mind, I also had made the personal target, man, I want to play football. I want to play 11-a-side football, and I knew that at 63.5 kilos, if I want to be a striker, I'm just going to get bullied on a football pitch. So I wanted to try and put that weight on, put that strength on. I never trained in a gym to get strong or get bigger. And we started, and it was amazing. And the great thing about going to the gym with Josh 3 mornings a week was that I was then accountable to somebody else. So I had to turn up. And I don't like the mornings, man. I hate them. I really don't like waking up in the morning. I'm definitely more of a afternoon person and evening person. That's when my brain's firing, I'm switched on. But it's really good to have that commitment to somebody else. And it was great. The strategy was we're going to do German volume training, which is all about doing high rep, relatively high weight, high reps. So we do 10 sets of 10 on a certain muscle group. We just smash that muscle group, and we'd have a day off, come back in the next day, do another muscle group, day off, come back in on Friday, another muscle group. By the time we got to the next week and we went back to that first muscle group again, they were rested, ready to go, and we'd smash it. And it worked straight away. I mean, I started putting weight on fast, and it was all muscle mass, because I'd never trained like this, and I'd lost a lot from South America. And again, it was coming back to what I've spoke about before, that knowledge. And Josh had the knowledge. If I'd have done this by myself, it'd taken me a lot longer. It might have taken me 12 months. But because Josh was telling me, look, you need to be eating about 1.5 grams of protein for every kilo of muscle mass you got, I didn't know that. When I figured that out, I was like, God, I was only eating 50 grams of protein. That's nowhere near enough. I need to be close to 100. And then he told me to start taking creatine, which I'd taken when I was a gymnast because the nutritionist had told me to when I was very young. But again, it came back to that not asking why. I just took it because they told me to. I never really asked, why am I taking this? How is this helping me? And this time I really was inquisitive. I was like, why am I taking this, Josh? What's this going to help me with? So I started taking the creatine, started taking some protein as well, some whey protein. So I was finding it hard. The nutrition side of things was tough for me. I found that difficult. Making myself eat. I made sure that when I was doing a training day, I was trying to eat 4 times a day. I'd have breakfast first thing, then 11sies, basically a second breakfast. Then I'd have lunch, then I'd have my dinner, and I'd have the protein shake and I'd have creatine, and I'd try and fit that in, which was hard, but I knew I had to be consistent with that. So I was consistent with the training, consistent with the food, and the results started to follow. And what I would do is, at the end of every month, they had a body matrix machine that scans your whole body. Now, I'm very aware that I spent my whole life training in a gymnastics gym with basically just my shorts on, staring at myself in the mirror. And I knew that would probably be a problem when I retired because my body would change, right? And I'm very aware of weighing yourself. I don't like it. I know what it can do. Tracking those numbers every single day and stepping on the scales, it can mess with your head. It's not good for your mental health. So I was very clear with myself, just weigh myself on the last day of the month that I'm in the gym. I'll weigh myself. And I did that. It was a great way to track my progress, because it was every time it was even. It was 1 month, 1 month, 1 month. And if you're measuring yourself every single day, your body can change, whether you've been to the toilet or you drank more fluids that day or you had a big meal. Like, it's all up and down. I remember when I used to train in a gym, sometimes I'd lose 1.5 kilos in a training session. If it was a routine session, I'd put it all back on then, like fueling myself back up for the next day. So I did that, stuck with it, and the main thing was like the consistency. I was just really consistent. Over those 7 months of going to the gym with Josh, I averaged 3 days a week, every week going to the gym. And if there was a week I did 2, the next week I'd do 4 days. And slowly the weight would come on and I'm putting the muscle mass on, and I went to 65 kilos, 66 kilos, 67 kilos. And, I pretty much went up every month until I think it was June. And in June, I dropped and I went down. And I was like, oh, good. Because I was really hoping to hit that 70 kilos by June. And it went down about 0.5 kilo. And I was like, right, come on, stick to it. Be more consistent. I did that. And the end of July, Josh had been away, I think. Josh was, I can't remember where he was. I think he was away coaching. And I'd gone by myself. And the night before, me with my idea to go and start playing football, I'd started doing pre-season football training. So I got back to 7-a-side at the start of the year, was playing that, enjoying it. And then I started having conversations with Keyworth United about maybe signing for the reserve team, going to training sessions. But I started I'd picked up a little bit of an injury, but I'd gone to these training sessions. And I'd gone to a training session about 3 weeks ago, just at the end of July. And the night before, everything was going great. I was like, I'm going to smash this 70 kilos. And I went into this training session at football, and I just ran into someone really hard, basically. There was a little setup they had. So they had 10 players on one side, 10 players on the other side, 2 goals, and everybody had numbers. My number was 7. Somebody on the other side would be 7. They called out 7. You'd both run out. I'd have the ball. I'd have to take that player on and shoot. As soon as I've shot, he gets the ball. He takes me on and shoots. And I'm so excited. I've never it's been 17 years since I've played football. So I've never had a football team talk, which is very different to gymnastics. Gymnastics is very professional. There's no swearing. It's all about tactics, strategy, what you're going to do in that session. I had this football team talk at the start of this training session because the team had been spanked 13-1 in pre-season. This guy's going, it's not good enough. Fucking shit. We're going to run. And I'm going, yeah, I'm going to run. And I'm getting so excited. And I'm standing there and he's not called my name. He's not called 7 out for ages. He calls 7 out and I just run at this poor lad so hard with the ball, get my shot away. And as I look up, I just run straight into him like that, straight into my right shoulder. And I can remember looking at the sky and my eyes rolling back in my head thinking, wow, that hurt. I carried on trying to do the rest of the session. And the funny thing was, it came back round to him calling 7 again. And he went, whose number haven't I called? And I was on the line, ready to go again. And I looked at the lad that I just ran into and he just kept his mouth shut. And I went, 7? And I ran at him straight again. I didn't hit him this time. But about 10 minutes later, I was in agony with my shoulder. So I had to go home. It was raining, went home, opened the door. Connie was like, how was it? Did you enjoy it? I was like, no, I've hurt my shoulder, Connie. And I was on the edge of my bed all night, literally nearly crying in agony. Then ended up in A&E and I was like, I've got to go and weigh myself tomorrow to see if I've hit the 70 kilos because I want to have finished it so I can move on to my next target. So I just went to the gym with my arm like this, struggling to drive. Got there, weighed myself and I was bang on 70 kilos. And I was like, yes, completed it. It was a really cool feeling because I'd done a lot of work over 7 months with Josh. And I think the unquantifiable benefits of going to the gym with Josh were the effects it had on my mental health and the conversations we'd have. Because I don't go to the gym anymore at Knots and Josh doesn't know my life. So we'd just talk to each other about life between our sets all the time. What's going on? How are you feeling about this? Josh is getting married, so we talk about that. I got engaged, we talk about that. And it was just a real friendship around the training. And I'd always leave my phone in the locker. I'd never touch my phone. It was just a great day to start the day. And we both said, after we'd trained, we felt at least on that day, we've done something productive. We've done something good and positive that day after training. It was so good for me, my mental health, my physical health. Yeah, it was brilliant. And we're going to keep it up, I think. I need to like rehab this shoulder. I've got a stomach problem. So I need to get them sorted. But I definitely, the last 2 weeks, I've not been able to go to the gym and I miss it. I can tell something's not right. Something's off. You know, a little bit with my mental health, maybe my mood. It's not quite right. I'm not quite energetic enough. There's something missing. I'm getting a bit frustrated. It's definitely that. I'm not going to the gym. You know, I'm not getting that exercise in. I'm not getting that endorphin release. So from next week, I'm hopefully, this has calmed down a bit. My stomach calms down and I can get back in the gym and just start doing a little bit again. I'm going to feel much better. I know I am. So, yeah, I'm excited for that. And I guess with my mental health, you know, that was more my physical health. But my mental health has been a long journey as well. It's been 4 years now. So it was 4 years ago that I first spoke to a doctor and I went into therapy. It was 3 years ago that I had to have a conversation with my parents, tell my mum and dad that I've been thinking about taking my own life. It was probably 2 years ago, the last time that I feel like I spent long periods in a state of depression. And when I sit back now and I think about the last 12 months, it's hard for me to think about the times that I've been really depressed, which is really good. Like, it's really cool for me now because there were times in the beginning where I never thought I was ever not going to feel that way. And that's been a 4-year process. And I've learned a lot in that time. I've learned a lot about myself. I think I've learned to accept myself, forgive myself. Certainly learned to like who I am again. That's been massive. It's taken a long time. And more than anything, it's just been self-discovery. I've just been on this journey of figuring out who I am, how I interact with the world, being open to new ideas, being open to other people knowing things that I don't know, being open to talking to people about it. And yeah, I've got to a point today where I think that, you know, at the start of this year, my granddad passed away, and that was probably the biggest test yet on my mental health. I think the people around me all kind of went, oh, how's he going to handle this? When in fact, actually, I think I handled it pretty well, you know. I've learned now to feel the emotions that I'm feeling. If I feel sad or I feel angry or I feel happy, I just let myself feel that. I used to like bottle that up and guard myself, you know. I used to be very, very concerned about what other people thought about me and how I look in every aspect of my life. I've kind of stripped that back, I think. I've got to a place where, like, I think my morals, my values, principles, my ethics, they're all kind of like, I know what they are now. They're kind of concrete and I stick to them. I don't really sway from them, you know. That's definitely helped me. I think it was my age as well. I was 25. You know, your brain fully forms at 25. There's probably a lot of people that struggle, have a bit of an existential crisis around that age. You know, I was getting towards the end of my gymnastics career. I'm sure that was a massive thing. Figuring out how I fit into the world at that point. Through that time, those 4 years, I've retired now. I've moved on to something else. I can say to everybody that is an athlete and is still training and is worried about retirement that it's great, it's good, that you're going to find purpose on the other side of that. It might take you some time. It might not be overnight. You know, I'm nearly 2 years retired. And I'm probably at the point now where I'm like feeling pretty comfortable and happy and like set and excited. And I feel like the next part of my life is going to be just as good as that part, you know, and all the good parts that you get with competing at a super high level, winning medals, like traveling with your friends around the world, all of that. You can get an equal level of fulfillment from other things in your life in the next chapter, 100%. So that gives me a lot of reassurance. And I think more than anything, like the biggest thing that I've learned to do in the last 4 years that's made the biggest difference is that I've got to a point where I like myself enough to care about myself and look after myself. That's the biggest one. You know, there were things that I was doing when I was struggling mentally that were not good for me. They were not healthy. They didn't help me. They hindered me. And it was mainly because I don't think I liked who I was. I didn't feel like I deserved it. It was a lot of like self-punishment type things, you know? As once I kind of switched that around and I started to like trust in other people telling me that like, oh, you're so great, mate. We love being around you. Like once I like started to go, I trust that person. I trust it. Maybe I am all right to be, that started to switch for me. And once I got to the point where I went, you know what? I really love who I am. I'm a good person. Once I figured that out, I had that conversation with someone recently. I said, you're a real good person, you know? Like, that's the best springboard or platform to start from in life. That's it. That's all you need to, if you're a good person, you try to do the right thing, you live your life well, and you look after the people around you, you're kind, you're nice to people, fundamentally, inherently, you try to be a good person. That's the only place that's the best place to start from. People would kill for that. Like, that's an amazing place to start from. And after I had that conversation with them, I was like, yeah, that's where I got to. That's where I was able to get to. It doesn't mean that I'm perfect. I'm not. I make mistakes all the time. I've made mistakes in the last 4 years. Sometimes I've made big ones. I've had to own them, take accountability for them, stand up to them, take it on the chin, whatever the consequences of that are. But for me, yeah, that's really become the framework of my life, making sure every day I can look at myself in the mirror, look at myself in the eyes when I'm brushing my teeth, and know, yeah, you're a good person. And if I ever feel like, I shouldn't have done that, then I need to put it right quick. I don't wait, I put it right straight away. That's massively helped me. So getting to a point where you like yourself enough to take care of yourself is super, and for me, that's made the biggest difference to my mental health, I think. And having, I'm lucky. I've got a great support network around me. And I guess that next thing I'm probably going to go on to is, my relationships, and the main relationship, which is for me in my life at the moment, which is Connie, right? So when I met Connie, that was when I was in the thick of it. I'd just come out of therapy. I just finished it. I thought I'd cured my depression. That was it. It was gone. Life was going to be great again. Gymnastics was going to be awesome. And a lot of it was all about getting back on top in gymnastics. And I went out and I met Connie. We're of the generation, now the generation of now. Like, we met on Tinder. She won't hate me for saying that. Met on Tinder. Literally, it was the first day she got on Tinder, she said, and first person she swiped right for. So whether she's massaging my ego and she's not telling me the truth or not, I don't know. But we met and we went on a night out, and it was at Josh's house, and Andy was there, Jack was there, all my best friends were there. I'd literally just fractured my foot, and so I'd just taken the boot off, and so it was my first time out, and I was just myself. I had a great night. I can remember just laughing the whole night through with everybody, all my best friends, and I forgot that Connie had messaged me and I'd messaged her, and she was going out, and then we were in the queue to go and be at one, and it's a bar in Nottingham, and literally a few months earlier I'd been in that bar, and I'd looked around and I'd gone, what the hell am I doing here? All of these people in this room, they're all lost, they're all lonely, and everyone's pretending that they've got their shit together, and it's a lie. I need to get out of here because I'm not going to find somebody in here. And then, funnily enough, I then met Connie in that bar for the first time, and it was amazing, man. When I met Connie, I'll never forget it, and I could tell that she just loved who I was straight away. She said it to me. She said, I think you're the best person I've ever met. And I was like, what? It was really weird, because that wasn't the way I talked to myself inside my head. It was the complete opposite of that. So it kind of threw me. I was like, what do you mean? And the thing was, there was so much sincerity in what she was saying. I believed her. And I started to believe her. And I think that was really key, because I was going through this process of trying to learn to love myself. And I had this person that genuinely just loved me for me and who I was and my personality. Nothing to do with what I'd done, gymnastics. She loved me and being around me. And I could link the two things together, and it gave me a bit of confidence. Maybe I'm okay. Maybe I do deserve to be here and to have a good life. And she made all the difference in the world. I say she was my guardian angel. I always say that Connie and Jack saved my life. And my relationship with Connie, I always say my relationship with Connie is the thing I've got the most right in my life. And the reason I got it right was because I made so many mistakes in the past. An analogy I use is that I used to play a landing game in gymnastics on the trampoline. We used to play the stick game. I used to keep a big whiteboard and I'd keep everybody's scores on it. And I'd play with other lads in the gym, right? And there was 20 skills. So there was 10 skills forward, 10 skills backwards. You had to go through all of the skills in a row, sticking them, and you get a perfect score, right, in the landing game. And it was really hard to do it. And you start easy and you build it all the way up. And once you got through all the forward ones, then you're on backwards. And I'd play it all the time. And most people, if they took a step, they'd stop. So they might get to landing number 7 or 8, take a step, and think, I'm not going to get a perfect game, so they'd stop. I just think, why, you shouldn't do that. I was like, you should carry on. Because what happens if in the next game you get to 9, you've never been at 9 before. You don't know what 9 feels like, right? But they didn't want to, because they knew they weren't going to do it, not going to have a perfect game, they didn't want to go all the way through to the end, even though they know they can't get a perfect block. They just didn't want to do it. They're like, I'm not doing that work. It's not going to work. I used to think, you're missing a trick. You're missing the point. And I always, even if I took a step on the first one, I'd go all the way through because I'd think this is going to help me for the next time I get to this point. Even the times where I make a mistake at 17, 18, 19, as much as it was soul destroying and everyone would be like, oh no, you nearly did it, I'd be like, yeah, but this is going to help me the next time I'm in this situation because I will have been here before. And it was the same with my relationships before, you know? Every mistake I made taught me how not to do it, how to do it the right way the next time around. And the relationships Connie had before me and the ones I had before her, I'm grateful for all of those, you know, because it's enabled me to get this. This is the thing in my life, my relationship with Connie, I got the most right, which is really cool. It's something I'm massively proud of. It's not perfect. I've still made mistakes. I've still got things wrong, but it's the thing I've got the most right because of the stuff that came before and the failure. And you just can't be scared in life to make mistakes and fail, you know. It doesn't work like that. You have to get used to it. It doesn't mean that it gets easier, but you understand what it was. You understand what it is. You understand those feelings. And yeah, my relationship with Connie's amazing. We've had the best 4 years, man. We're just best friends. We just laugh at each other all the time. Sometimes I make her cry laughing. And no one else laughs at me like that. No one gets my humour, but Connie does. She loves me for me, all my quirks, not being able to sit still and all of the crazy ideas that I have and the singing and the dancing and the running around and all of that kind of, she loves it, you know? So we work really well together. She's been she's been my guardian angel, especially in the last 4 years. She's helped me learn to like love who I am again. And I decided from the start of our relationship that I was going to do things differently this time. The biggest thing that I decided I was going to do is that I was going to be honest. I was going to tell her the truth from the get-go. I was going to be honest. And I can remember around that time when I met Connie, I was living in my granddad's house and I was reading a book by Michael Caine. It was like his autobiography. And there was a bit in it where he was saying, if you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. Because otherwise, how's anyone going to ever trust you? And one of our first dates, we went to play crazy golf. So there's like it's like the classic first date in Nottingham. It's like the Lost City crazy golf place. And you go around this crazy golf. And if you get like a hole in one on the last 18 hole, you get a gold coin, you get a free game, right? So we go all the way around and we've gone late at night. It's like 11:30 at night. There's no one else in there. We're down there. We get to the last hole. You know, I'm happy, like we're hanging out, we're like making each other laugh. And you have to like smack the ball up a ramp and there's like a target sign. You get it in the middle, you get the perfect coin. It's really hard to do it. So I went to her, I said, you get a perfect hole in one, I'll strip and I'll run round the golf course. She was like, no, you won't. And like the echo of Michael Caine's voice was like, this is it, this is the moment. If she's ever going to trust me, I've got to say, he's told me, if you say you're going to do something, you've got to do it. So she like hits it and it hits like the barrier and bounces back. It's not gone in. And she just takes a swipe at it. Like she's got no technique when it comes to golf whatsoever. She takes this swipe at it and goes straight in. And I think, oh no, I've got like a split second to decide what I'm going to do. I'm like, I've got to do it. Like I've decided I'm going to do things differently and just tell the truth and be honest. So I stripped, ran around this golf course. She thought I was an absolute nutter, put my clothes back on and I went, right, now it's your turn. And I swear, took the golf shot, it went straight in and I looked at her and she went, there's not a chance in hell I'm doing that. So then I walked back upstairs with her 2 gold coins for a free game. We get to the top of the escalator and the woman turns the computer screen round and she's laughing her head off. She's like, that's the funniest thing I've seen in here, like, since I've been working here. And I didn't realise they had monitors around the whole thing, so all the staff upstairs had just been watching me running around without my clothes on, so... that was one of the funniest stories from when we first met. I don't think I've ever told anyone that. So, yeah, and I just decided from the start of our relationship, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to be honest. That's the way we're going to do it. And, yeah, it's been that way. And, yeah, we got engaged a few months ago. We're both incredibly happy. We're excited for the next chapter of our life. And, yeah, I guess this podcast has all been about good things taking time. I think we live in a world at the moment where everyone wants a quick fix. You know, everyone's cars on finance. People are paying for mobile phones on finance. It's Instagram, it's likes, it's attention, it's constant everything's getting quicker and quicker and quicker. No one can sit still without checking the phone or scrolling. You know, you can order clothes. If you want something, you get it straight away. It comes the next day. The next thing's going to be that you order something on that day, it comes the same day. Like, everything's getting quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. And, you know, everybody wants to be successful and have the nice car and the nice life and the house and all of that. But you don't get there without the work. There's no secret. I've never come across someone, you know, I have the chance to sit down and interview people on my podcast now, right? It's always hard work. It's the same story. There's no overnight successes. It's not quick. And if there is one, it doesn't last. Good things take time. And, you know, for something to last, it has to be authentic. And it has to have real strong foundations and credibility to it. You know, that's what I'm trying to build with my gymnastics coaching. That's what I'm trying to do with the podcast. We put everything into it. We put our best work into it. We try our very best. I think that's really important. I think that's given us the credibility that now when, you know, I talk to people and ask if they want to come on, they're like, yeah, we'll come on. And that's a combination of, you know, the work that I've put in and the work that Sam puts in. And, yeah, I think going to the gym has been massive for me this year. I'm going to keep that up. I'm super happy. I can't wait to hopefully start consistently playing football. I made my debut on Saturday for Keyworth United first team, which was the weirdest experience ever because I've spent the last 15 years going to watch my brother play football. And the last football game I'd played was when I was 13 in 2006. So 17 years later, I played an 11-a-side game of football. I came on for the last 20 minutes. I had no idea what I was doing. Like, the manager told me to get my tracksuit off and then come on as a sub. And then I was like, where do I stand? Do I run on before he gets off? What am I doing? I had no idea what I was doing. I was just running around like a headless chicken, but I absolutely loved it. And then I came on at 1-1 and we won 2-1. It was no thanks to me. The keeper like smashed it out from a goal kick and their defender lobbed their own keeper, which was hilarious. So then we won 2-1, which is amazing. I'm now going to have to rehab back, but that's been that seven months of work with Josh, but also I've been playing 7-a-side for 18 months. I've also been thinking about, I wonder if I could play football again since I was 21, 22, 23. So the moral of the story is there's no quick successes. Good things take time. And I know that, you know, me and Connie met each other at the perfect moment when we were supposed to, when we were ready to meet each other. You know, if we'd have met each other earlier, I don't think it would have worked. So yeah, anybody out there that's, you know, itching for that, they want something, they're frustrated that it's not working for them, just keep at it, keep plugging away, keep doing the right things and the good things will come. They just take time. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you to everybody that's, again, listening, subscribing. You know, we're on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon. If you've got an Alexa, you can tell Alexa to play the Sam Oldham podcast now, which is pretty cool. I tried it the other day. We're on YouTube every week. You can watch the visuals. So we're loving it. We're getting more people watching, more people downloading. We want it to grow. We appreciate all the support. If you get 2 minutes to review the podcast on Spotify or Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast, write as a review. I'll try to get back to you. Thanks for everybody that's engaging with it. Hopefully you're enjoying them. You're enjoying the mix of guests and solos still. I think it's important that we keep that original solo format that we had because, you know, that's what everybody, especially the people that were there in the beginning, are used to, and I think it's really good. It's good for me anyway. I enjoy it. It splits it up, makes it easier for us managing guests as well and the flexibility. So, yeah, thank you to everybody. We appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.